Welcome to Epiphany number 24. You can't steer a parked car. This is one of my favorites, and I didn't invent this expression or phrase. I heard it many, many years ago, and in one sentence, it made so much sense to me that for me, it became one of my epiphanies. And essentially, it means that you got to get going, right? You got to get moving before you start worrying about tweaking and making adjustments and analyzing too much. You can have that paralysis of analysis. And I see this happen so much in this business, especially, but not only with newer people. Let me first learn all the scripts, but they don't actually even take the time to they say that. Or let me get all these other licenses and certifications. Listen, if you got a life insurance license, a Series 6 and a 63, you can make literally $1 million a year in this business. So go make $100,000 minimum, and then you can worry about this stuff. Because what will happen is, by the time your car's moving at $100,000 of income or $100,000, whatever metaphor you want to use, the things that you think are important now won't be, and the things that you didn't even think about are really important. And no matter how much your manager, trainer, mentor, guide tells you, you don't believe it till you're there. So you've got to get before you worry. If I'm going to train you, as an example, as a Formula One driver, yeah, there's some book study, there's some classroom study, maybe even some simulation. But at the end of the day, you're not going to really learn anything until you get in the car and just start get it rolling, get it moving. Even if it's only 10 miles an hour, get at least moving. Now you can start steering. Steering while it's parked is not only bad for the tires, but it doesn't go anywhere. You've got to get yourself moving. And what does the moving mean in our business? Prospecting, talking to actual human beings about setting an appointment so you can tell your story. Number 2, telling your story, which means actually having a client appointment. 3, creating a case design. But be careful there. You also don't, overanalyze. Okay, it can be very, very simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. Then 3, presenting it and closing it. And then 5, getting referrals. That's the moving of the car. And that's what you need to do. You go on 10 appointments, 15 appointments. The objections and questions and concerns that you thought people were going to have when you've only had 0 or 1 or 2 appointments probably almost never come up. And stuff that you can't think of right now is what does come up. And this is why it's so frustrating for me and so hard and difficult sometimes to explain it, and I apologize. Maybe you already get it, but I just cannot stress enough. You've got to just go do it and try it before you start overanalyzing and doing and that's the difference. It's like maybe there's the greatest Formula One driver living in some small village in Austria that could ever exist. But he just never got around to learning go-karting and then going to, Formula 2 or whatever, and then going from 3 and 2 and then 1. And that could be you. You might be the greatest assets under management builder ever. But if you're still stuck in your little town and village in Austria, metaphorically, and you're not out there actually doing the work, which means talking to humans and doing appointments, it's never going to happen. And you can do all the simulation and analyzing and thinking about, what if they say this? I got to do that, or I want to have this. I want to have these business. I've had people actually tell me, new people, of course, that they can't set they won't set appointments because they don't have their business cards yet. This is a true story. I've actually had that happen twice, I think, basically the same thing. Like, nobody cares. It's like, if that's not an example of avoidance behavior, right? The common ones are, I have to get my 65, I got to get my 7, I got to get my CFP, I got to get my CLHU, I've got to get all the other designations, I got to get my 73, then I want to get my website up, then I got to get my marketing pages, then nobody cares. And you're not going to get any more clients because you have licenses and certifications, or less if you don't. Okay? And the only way to really learn this business is you have absolutely got to get the car moving. That is absolutely the most important thing. And so then you might say, well, how do I do that? Okay, other than just doing it, right? And sometimes that really just is the answer, is just do it, right? Just pretend your life depended on it. Right? Just do it. Okay? So 2 things. One is, and no one does this first one. It works tremendously for the very, very, like, I can count on one hand number of people in 30 years that did it, but no one does it, really. And that is public commitment for accountability. Make a public commitment to the rest of the team. Like go on to, for example, our mastermind chat room and say, hey guys, hey gals, I want to get serious about the business. I want to throw myself out there and I commit to following the master game plan. So I'm going to do 1 to 4 prospects a day. I'll report back. I will attempt or do 2 to 4 client appointments a week, new ones, and I'll put my accountability up on in the mastermind chat room. I will do, and then from then on it gets less and less guaranteed. Like you can't necessarily predict the amount of revenue. You should do about $2,000, $2,500 of revenue a week. You can't always predict that. I get that too, but you can definitely, to a degree, predict how many appointments you can 100% predict and do the first step, which is 1 to 4 prospects a day. Right? You might get all no's for 2 weeks straight, but you still did the prospect. There's no one's holding you back from that. Now, in terms of how many will say yes, there still is law of large numbers. So do that. And then every day, whenever your day is done, whatever that means, it doesn't matter what time it is, go in the chat room and say, hey, I just want to say this is what I did today, or this is what I didn't do. Okay, and it's not as bad as you think. People aren't going to give you a hard time. They'll say, hey, listen, you got to get busy, or, thanks for reporting back. No one does this, or people that very rarely have done it do it for like a week and then they stop. But here's the kicker. It works. Nothing like public confession and accountability. So that's number 1. Number 2, there's only 2 things, is just you got to do immediate action. I already said it a moment ago, just do it. Any kind of goal you have, let's say you want to do a diet plan, like this whole New Year's resolution stuff is the worst thing. It's actually counterproductive. If you want to make a change in your life, let's say use the diet and health because that's kind of very common among universal experience for most people. You got to do it like this moment. Not I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm going to start the beginning of the month because I still got one more pizza to eat today. I got pizza night. No, if you made a decision, when I decided to get in shape, which was it was 1999, it was Thanksgiving Day, the morning of Thanksgiving. And now, by the way, I love pumpkin pie. It's my favorite American dessert, and I didn't have any. I didn't have any carbs knowingly. Didn't have any carbs for a year. I went cold turkey that day. Boom, changed my life. Completely changed my life. As of this video, I'm 186. What measure myself every day because what gets measured gets improved, and I was at 160. So that would I'm not trying to promote low carb. My point is that the discipline works. Okay, maybe you have a different diet program or health program, exercise program, whatever. But the key there, the reason I told you the story was I did it that day. I didn't say, well, I'll wait till after Thanksgiving. It's like the same thing here. If you're watching this video and maybe there's some impact here and you're like, you know what, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I don't want to steer a parked car. I want to actually drive the car. Then you need to go drive the car today. When you turn off this video, you need to make a call or whatever the method is, and you need to make one prospecting attempt. And most people won't. It's always in the future. I'll get around to it. Okay? You got to, and really, this is obviously applicable to anything. Okay? This isn't just exercise. This isn't just our business. Frankly, it's even for studying. Right? I mean, there's a few people that don't really study much or enough, and then they fail their test. But the truth is, most people in our business gravitate towards studying, test taking, licensing getting, certifications getting, and there's a singular reason why. They fool themselves, but here's the real reason why. Because now they can tell themselves that they're doing the business, but avoid the thing that actually is the business, which is setting appointments and doing appointments. It's avoidance behavior, like Nick Murray says. That's why the people, once they get started, they never stop. Right? Then they get the CHL, CHP. They get all the different. Then they get a 73 license, and it's just 26. It goes on and on and on. Now they're fully licensed with 17 initials after their name, and they've made no money. Meanwhile, the guys that have the 6 and 63 go out there and make $300,000 a year. Because the licensing, or whatever it is, it's not just licensing. It could be self-improvement, it could be reading, it could be all those things. The main issue is you have got to get that car moving. Okay? But if you get it moving, you will have success.